We're off to an underappreciated corner of Australia today, a place that grows the secret ingredient in many a decorated Australian wine. The bottle to take us there is this Hick Malbec 2024 from Wangalina and Project 5255 in Langhorne Creek. We're here, South Australia, less than an hour's drive southeast of Adelaide and east of the more famous McLaren Vale wine region. There's no actual creek with the name Langhorne. There was, however, an 1840s cattle drover, Arthur Langhorne, who would cross what later became the Bremer River to enjoy the fertile land round here. Arthur's nickname apparently was the Liar, so it seems fitting that a creek that doesn't exist should bear his name. Why isn't Langhorne Creek more famous? Various reasons, but overshadowed by more accessible regions with iconic estates, it doesn't fulfill that key criterion of those most hallowed grape growing areas, namely marginality. Effectively, the idea that ex-factor wines tend to grow in places almost too tricky to grow them, because they're on the cusp of being too high or too steep or too cold or too wet or too arid or too meagre and rocky in the soil department. Langhorne Creek, on the other hand, has plenty of irrigation water from the Bremer and Angus rivers and their not infrequent floods. River flows have contributed to relatively rich soils, chiefly deep alluvial sandy loams varying in colour from red-brown to dark grey with patches of black self-mulching clays. It gets plenty of sun too to reliably ripen its predominantly black grapes. Red wine varieties account for well over 3/4 of plantings here. Ripeness is a good thing, of course, particularly when allied to Langhorne Creek's superpower, moderating breezes thanks to its proximity to the 600 square kilometre Lake Alexandrina and, just beyond, the Southern Ocean. The breeze is known as the Lake Doctor, and it cools the vines in summer and autumn, prolonging ripening and helping retain natural acidity. The geographical indication, or GI, of Langhorne Creek covers just over 6,000 hectares of vineyards, but there are only about 10 cellar doors here. You might be familiar with names like Bleasdale, Bremerton and Lake Breeze, but extend that to wineries that proudly use its excellent grapes, and the likes of Thistledown, SC Panel, Mr. Riggs, Heartland and Unico Zello crop up, alongside giants such as McGuigan, Saltram, Jacobs Creek and Wolf Blass. In fact, Wolf Blass won a string of 3 consecutive Jimmy Watson trophies, Australia's most famous wine award, with Langhorne Creek fruit back in the 70s. And Langhorne Creek wine, Stony Fells Matala, won the inaugural Jimmy in 1962. Shiraz rules the roost here with 36% of the harvest in 2024. The region's Cabernet Sauvignon, varietally true but with a rounded, velvety richness in line with the local Shiraz, was a fifth of the crush. Chardonnay, Merlot and Grenache round out the top 5. I was surprised not to see Malbec there because this place does it well. These friendly growing conditions are increasingly harnessed for alternative varieties, such as Fiano, Vermentino and Pecorino in the whites, and Montepulciano, Tempranillo, Lagrange, Dolcetto and Nero d'Avola in reds. Now this wine exists precisely to spread the Langhorne Creek gospel, as I explained in the caption, so please read that. It smells of raspberries and salty red plums, a touch floral, leafy and graphitey. It's bright and fresh to taste, ripe but not too sweet, medium bodied, supple, a touch of peppery spice chiming in, but it's the freshness and balance that really makes it. Vibrant tannins and a peppy finish ringing with a clear, pure high note of red fruit and flowers.